Just beneath the surface of everyday life lies something remarkable. Opportunity after opportunity to experience awe. I know every one of us has experienced awe at some point, perhaps at the birth of a child, or even sometimes in the case of someone who's gone through transition, or being out in a beautiful place in nature, expansive, inspiring. In fact, I can't believe we don't all walk around with our jaws dropped all the time. Life is so generous and amazing. The Sufi mystic Rumi wrote a poem entitled, "How does the divine keep from fainting, looking at itself all day?" That's a good question, isn't it? Awe is an overwhelming feeling of amazement for something that is grand, special, or unique. It's a very powerful emotion that can be transformative in our lives. Awe often inspires reverence, and sometimes awe inspires fear. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and there are a lot of tornadoes in St. Louis, and I'd never seen one. So I really wanted to see a tornado until I saw one. Certainly, it was very awe-inspiring, and it was also very scary. Awe is often when we connect with something vast. Now, this could be in terms of physical size, like the Grand Canyon, or the starry skies, or the largest animal on Earth. Do you know who that is? A blue whale. Awe can also be related to age or time. For example, dinosaurs who lived from 65 to 240 million years ago. Or in Spain, there's a handprint at the entrance to a cave temple that was placed there by a shamaness 20,000 years ago. And there is the most ancient temple structure in what is now Turkey, in Göbekli Tepe, from 10,000 years ago. Awe can also come about because of complexity of detail. For example, how our body heals itself, or air traffic control, or the activity in a beehive. Awe can also be inspired by an individual's skill. For example, the artist Michelangelo, with the creation of Adam, that painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, or his sculpture David, or the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, or the amazing individual skill of Serena Williams. Awe can also come about because of the impact that it has on others. Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Mohammed, Galileo, Abraham Lincoln, Susan B. Anthony, all of these awe-inspiring people had incredible impact on many people's lives. Awe also broadens our thinking. It usually, or I should say it often, involves vastness. For example, outer space or inner space, or the distance in miles. For example, we may feel awe for someone who walks 1,000 miles across an entire country. For example, those who walk from one side of Spain to the other on the Camino de Santiago. And we can feel awe when we feel our connection with the universe. And then what happens? There's a need for accommodation. And this means that the way we used to view the world doesn't fit quite right anymore. So we need to change our way of thinking. Some of you may be familiar with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was the 6th human to walk on the moon. And when he was traveling back from the moon to Earth, as he neared Earth and he saw it just enveloped by darkness, and he saw this beautiful shining planet, he experienced a sense of universal connectedness. And here's what he wrote about that experience. I realized that the story of ourselves as told by science, our cosmology, our religion, was incomplete and likely flawed. I recognize that the idea of separate, independent, discrete things in the universe wasn't a fully accurate description. What we needed was a new story of who we are and what we are capable of becoming. Many other astronauts have reported similar experiences. And something similar may have led you to the Rosicrucian order. Again, awe involves a sense of vastness that puts into perspective our own relatively small place in the world. This vastness could be physical or it could be psychological. And then this alters the way that we understand the world. We have all had experiences of awe. Again, maybe gazing upon the stars and humbly realizing a diminished sense of self. Now, having a diminished sense of self is not something negative. It's humbling, and then we can reassess and modify our notions of where we fit in the interconnected universe, that we're part of something grand. Now, many Westerners, and maybe especially Americans, value the individual being bigger. However, I think many of us can understand the humbling, diminished sense of self when, for example, we look at the Statue of Liberty that was dedicated in 1886. First of all, there is the size of this colossal statue. She's 305 feet tall, including the base, that's about 100 meters, or without the base, about 151 feet tall. Then her history, since 1886, welcoming so many people who sought freedom in the United States. And the impact, what this meant, not only to the people who came to the United States and passed the Statue of Liberty and entered through that area, but also how the Statue of Liberty represents freedom and the potential for expanded opportunities. That's humbling. That's a diminished sense of self because we see how we fit in with the much larger picture. And again, perhaps some of you have experienced awe either giving birth or being present at the birth of a new being. Think about this for a minute. You're in a room. Let's say there are 3 of you. There's the mother, there's, let's say, a doctor, and there's you, and then there are 4 of you. Isn't that awe-inspiring? And I've seen some of your postings on Facebook, so I know that after that amazing birth, then there's awe at the baby's first smile, and awe anytime that baby does anything cute. That makes sense. This is so amazing that that child was born and then somehow learns how to smile, learns how to turn over, learns how to take the first step. We may also experience awe related to outer space. Some of you may have participated in observing the solar eclipse, which took place in North America on August 21st of 2017. 88% of Americans, 261 people took time to witness this solar eclipse that happened 4 years ago. There were hundreds of people at Rosicrucian Park together. It was so touching. Another awe-inspiring event that happens in space is the aurora borealis. And this is when colors and patterns are from the types of ions or atoms being energized as they collide with the atmosphere and are affected by lines of magnetic force. And I'm going to share a video with you now.
No, I'm taking video. No. Stay back.
So what time? 还要先拍这个动作。哇塞，你从 You will share this with us, right?
Yes, of course.
Wow!
Wow! Woohoo! Wow!
好玩呢。
Wow! 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 Woohoo! Wow!
好大，好棒哦！哇，整个头上都是哎。
对啊，因为到处是激光。
对啊。
Okay, guys, this is the strongest northern lights I have ever seen. Yes.
Don't you just want to be there with them?
No, no photo. I'm taking video.
I've never seen the aurora borealis in person, but one time I went into a grocery store, and when I came out, there were about 10 people standing in the parking lot looking up over my head and over the grocery store with their mouths dropped. And it was a little eerie because I thought, wow, what is behind me? And there was a rainbow that was shining just like that in the sky. A really big storm had gone through. The sky was black, and because the water had frozen up in the atmosphere, it was the same colors as what you just saw in that video. And it's something I'll remember my whole life. And again, there are many reports of astronauts who have these amazing experiences with the sights that they see in the sky. Now we're going to come a little closer to home and look at some of the amazing aspects of nature. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I invite you just for a couple of minutes here to view these beautiful images from nature. Wouldn't you love to come across any of those beauties that we just saw? They're all so awe-inspiring. There's so many awe-inspiring animals. I learned recently that bees have been shown to understand the concept of zero. Now, I wish they could speak because I'd like them to explain the concept of zero to me. They're also able to count up to 4. They would show them images of like a square and a circle and a triangle, and then put 4 squares and 3 triangles, and the bees could count those. A grizzly bear's bite is strong enough to crush a bowling ball. Can you believe the power of that animal? Dolphins have whistle names for one another. So they will call for each other with a specific name that they whistle, and it's a name for that dolphin. And orca whales can learn to speak dolphin. Now, a while back, Julian Johnson presented a fascinating program on the intelligence of plants. Plants can feel, smell, see, and remember. The biggest tree is a giant sequoia in California's redwood forest. It is 30 stories tall, 82 feet, which is about 25 meters in circumference. California holds the record for the oldest living trees, too. Some of the state's bristlecone pines and giant sequoias are over 4,000 years old, and some may even be 5,000 years old. Now, there's awe-inspiring art, like Tibetan sand paintings, where Tibetan monks take a little tube and they tap it and let a few grains of sand fall at a time to create these beautiful mandalas, which then they sweep away, signifying the impermanence of life. There's art from prehistoric cave paintings, and there's art from Hildegard of Bingen, the German mystic from the 1100s, who had visions, who had mystical visions, and then had beautiful art created from them. There's awe-inspiring architecture. The Great Pyramid of Giza. How in the world did they build any of those pyramids? Machu Picchu, the Taj Mahal. There's awe-inspiring poetry. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. When feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. There's awe inspired by the human body. In many of our Department of Instruction Wednesday teleconferences, afterwards we'll do some movement to music together. And I often mention fascia, which is the largest organ in the body. It's this thin casing of connective tissue around every cell, every organ, every nerve, every muscle, and it gives us a sense of who we are. It's because of fascia that we know if we're okay. It gives us a sense of our okayness. Are we hungry? Are we too hot? It also tells us where we end. It gives us an idea of the extent of our being. Fascia has between 6 and 10 times as many nerve cells as our muscles. Now I'm going to share a video that is called The Inner Life of the Cell. And this was produced by ex vivo for Harvard University to help their biology students understand different aspects of biology. So this is going to show us a white blood cell's movement along the endothelium and its response to an external stimulus, a process known as leukocyte extravasation. We're alive because of this, and this is happening within all of us all the time. So again, this is The Inner Life of the Cell, a scientific animation by ex vivo. Isn't that amazing? And that's going on inside of us all the time. Now, people are awe-inspiring too. There are historic men and historic women, people who are still alive, who inspire us. We can also be inspired by consciousness. And I think this is probably what has attracted most of us to the Rosicrucian order. Joseph Campbell, the well-known mythologist, said, most people think they want to know the meaning of life, but what they really want to experience is the rapture of being fully alive. And for me, the Rosicrucian ontology brings that to life. Here are the first 3 points. The divine is the universal intelligence that thought, manifested, and animated all creation according to unchanging, perfect laws. All of creation is permeated by a universal soul that evolves toward the perfection of its own nature. Life is the vehicle for cosmic evolution, such as it manifests in the universe and on Earth. We are all mirrors in which the divine untiringly contemplates its own reflection. We contribute to the evolution of consciousness by expanding our awareness. How awe-inspiring is that? H. Spencer Lewis said, there is nothing so inspiring, so filled with peace, happiness, perfect health, joy, and contentment as the development of the spiritual nature. At the beginning of every lodge convocation, the chaplain shares the Rosicrucian ontology. And I can't share the text from the ritual. However, I have spent a lot of time meditating on the words that are presented. And I'd like to share one interpretation of the Rosicrucian statement of being. Being or beingness has always existed. Light comes from being's continuous movement. It's beingness, which is its own luminosity. At first, there was no feeling, so light wasn't warm. And since there was no reflection, being didn't have any form either. Beingness, which is always in motion, then expanded and became more complex, creating density. And this created warmth from light. Then living things began. Beingness experienced sensitivity through living things, which eventually became aware of themselves and of their source. Beingness, our source. All life is a vehicle through which the divine, God, or beingness contemplates its own reflection, its own awe-inspiring magnificence. It experiences its own beingness through life. Mind is a characteristic of being, which under certain conditions allows being to become conscious of itself and enables it to a limited extent to direct itself. Through mind, formless being took on form and dimension. Then beingness, as light, shone. It reflected its own essence. There are many ways for us to experience awe. First, when you catch yourself in awe, linger. Sit there with the feeling for as long as possible. Slow down. Try to create space for awe to emerge in the mundane. When you eat a meal, consider all the energy that went into the food in front of you. Tune into your senses, the color, texture, scent, and sound. as much as we can, step away from our computers. We can take all walks, especially out in nature. We can create awe journals, capturing all of this amazing awe experience, all these amazing awe experiences around us. We can listen to music. We can spend time with a child or with your dog or your cat or watching wild animals. That's awe-inspiring. We can reframe some of our day-to-day tasks. Henry Miller once stated, "The moment one gives close attention to anything, even a blade of grass, it becomes a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself." Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "If the star should appear just one night in 1,000 years, how people would believe and adore it, and adore them, and preserve for generations the remembrance of the city of God which had been shown. But every night come out these envoys of beauty and light the universe with their admonishing smile." I mentioned earlier that Rumi wrote this poem, "How does the divine keep from fainting?" Here is that poem. The wonder of water moving over that rock in the stream justifies its existence. The swish of a horse's tail. Again, I am stunned by the grandeur of the unseen one that governs all movement. I resist looking at the palms of my hands sometimes. Have you ever gotten breathless before a beautiful face? For I see you there, my dear. There is a wonderful problem waiting for you that the divine and I share. How to keep from fainting when we see each other. In truth, how does God keep from fainting looking at himself all day? Light is moving like a stream, and the myriad celestial beings applaud. Fratres and sorors, I wish you many awe-inspiring experiences in your life. So mote it be.